Welcome back to the Fox Robbins Business Show. Come on in and sit down or relax, and don't touch the channel changer for the next half hour.
At least.
Yeah. This is the Fox Robbins Business Show, and this is not brand new. We've been doing this for 10 years.
Really?
Since the fall of 2008.
Oh my God, you're getting old.
Well, yeah, but you don't look a day older than
God bless you.
when we started this show.
God bless you.
This is the Fox Robbins Business Show. It's all about entrepreneurship, small business. Even if you're just thinking about starting a business, or you're actually in the act of getting one going up and running, or your business is already started and it's been running for, it doesn't matter, for 1 month or 10 years, it doesn't matter. There's no end of topics to discuss to provide help and encouragement to small business. That's why we're here. I'm the co-host of the show, but the other co-host, and this is where you have to start paying attention, because this guy out on the street, they say he is exquisite.
I am.
But he's also notorious.
That's true.
And remarkable. He is Coach Robbins.
Well, you finally got one adjective in there that's right, notorious, unfortunately.
And Coach, we're going to talk about supervision today. What is a supervisor? How are people who are supervised? How are they chosen? What kind of people are they? How do they act? What's the best approach here? So that this is, if you're starting a business or you have a business up and running and you don't know anything about how to hire, evaluate, train, and break in supervisors, you're in trouble.
Motivate them, lead them.
And that's what you spent how many years doing is...
What was movie for?
But there's tradition, but there's contemporary trends also in supervision. Yep. So I'm gonna
a lot of research.
I'm gonna be asking you about that today.
Okay.
And we're gonna start with the objectives here. That's always a good place to start. And for defining supervisor, there's research about management technique, management capability.
Yep.
What are supervisory skills? Speaking of modern trends, what about workforce diversity these days?
Absolutely.
What are the acknowledged functions of supervisors? And supervisors must relate as to business owners.
They better.
But
they won't be supervisors long.
Other employees and co-workers and so forth. And that's vital.
360 degrees.
And what would you look for a typical background of supervisors, and what makes for success? If a supervisor says, I want to be successful, what would that be?
What do I need to do, right?
So, Coach, this is our objectives. Do you agree with all of these?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're talking here hopefully to a lot of small business people, and a lot of, well, not a lot. Some people come to me and say, I want to start a business, but I don't want employees. I really just want to work alone. And I say, great. Just understand that there's only so much money you can make in a year working alone. I mean, you make money when you have other people working for you, and they're making money for the company too, and therefore if you own the company, you're making money for you, and you have to learn how to deal with them. And it can be difficult, stressful at times, but if you understand how to manage human beings, then it can be very rewarding, because you do build a team, sometimes even something you could even call a family of people working in a company, and it can be very, very rewarding, both financially and personally, to be working with people you actually enjoy working with. Well,
having supervisors, you brought up a big point, because I'd like to have, 10 cents for every time you've talked about people starting up business. They want to do everything themselves.
Well, at first maybe
I want to lick the postage stamps. I want to make the cupcakes. I want to, wrap all the packages.
Right. But is that really the best use of your time?
I want to do the book work,
Yeah.
bookkeeping. I don't need anybody. I'll do it all myself.
Good.
And so you're going to address that in this show because
there's only a couple thousand hours a year you can work. If you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, whatever, it's a couple thousand hours a year you can work. I mean, but if you got 10 employees, that's 20,000 hours a year that are working for the benefit of the company. But you have to learn how to manage human beings. And this is the biggest flaw I see in businesses everywhere. Big businesses, small businesses, this person might be good at some technical function and they get promoted to be a supervisor. No management training, not a clue how to manage a human being, not a clue how to do any planning, any strategic planning, have no idea how to operate what we call a control function we'll get to. Haven't got a clue how to do that. And then the people that promoted that person move them back because they're not a good manager. Well, you didn't help them be a good manager. It's not fairy dust that makes you a good manager of human beings.
Now here's Coach.
I wish it was. I'd start a business selling management fairy dust.
Fairy dust. Coach, here's these are typical titles or positions to be filled by people who are called supervisors, like production manager, second shift supervisor. So now the company has two shifts.
Right. So hopefully they have two managers.
Chief physical therapist, secretarial supervisor, sales manager, assistant director of housekeeping, and so forth. I mean, these are the types of job titles that pertain to people in a supervisory position.
Yeah, this usually is, when we say supervisory management, we really mean the very first layer of management. Certainly you want to work your way up to the C-suite, hopefully, if it's a big enough company. But what we're talking about in this show is the very nascent stage of your career as a manager of people. Right.
And the supervisor, a supervisor or supervisors must focus. They must focus on the functions to be performed. You just mentioned ago, you plunk somebody into the seat called supervisor with no background, no training, maybe no ability.
That's the worst.
Or maybe ability but no knowledge or focus.
Right.
Okay, here's the focus. Coach, it's one of your favorite: planning, organizing, leading, controlling.
Yep.
Talk to us about that.
Well, we're going to get into each one of those things, and you will notice there's another one added later on. I always pick up on it. When I use this particular program in my supervisory management class, I immediately at this point say to the students, we've got planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. Certainly in larger companies, there might be an HR department that preliminarily weeds out some good potential employees for your division. But when it comes to the final decision, it better be yours to choose, the ingredients for the soup, as Bill Parcells used to say. So it's planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. We're going to break.
That's a great point, because your staffing is in.
It is included. It does come up later in the presentation.
Well, I should have had it on this list, I guess.
No, that's the way the author
So I
has
failed my supervisory.
Well, you got an 80, 4 out of 5.
The supervisors, we'll start right off with supervisors must focus on people.
It's exactly what it's about, yeah.
Like dealing directly with employees, knowledge about the organization's customers. Supervisors must emphasize a people orientation, so to speak, and recognize that the organization quality thrives on interaction between members of the company, the organization. Talk to us about all of that.
Well, obviously you're dealing with employees. I mean, directly, you probably were one of them. And one of the more difficult things is when you're working with a group of people and you get picked to be their supervisor. That's a tricky situation, but there are ways to handle that beyond the scope of this show. But the most important thing that I want to say about this thing is yes, you all of a sudden are not just task oriented, you have to add people orientation to it. Your people are important, their welfare, their satisfaction. This is how they become committed, engaged employees, and that's your job as a supervisor, a manager at any level, to get the employee engaged with the job and the company and the division.
Okay. And the types of skills that supervisors must have.
Yep.
This is when you, the business owner, are selecting people to supervise. There are skills to look for, such as, of course, technical. How about technical skills?
Yeah, you might have been a machinist and you had great, you were great on the type of machinery, or somebody in the IT department and you're wonderful, working the IT and actually getting involved there. Now you've been moved up to the supervisory management level. You're very close to those people who are doing that specific type of work, and you usually have to have at that level a broad array of technical skills. Otherwise, how can you help them hands-on day to day if you don't have the technical skills that they've got? It can be very, very difficult.
Yeah, and that would be nice. I had remember I was at a company that was doing metal work, welding, brazing, punching, grinding, metal work, fabrication, metal fabrication. The person, the owner put in charge of the shop was a carpenter. Okay.
Was he trying to weld wood?
Anyway, technical skills, but also back to the people thing, human relation skills.
Absolutely.
What's that? What's that?
Well, that's the ability to understand people, their motivations, how to lead them, how to motivate them, how to handle difficult situations with them. And it's those people that are working directly for you that are going to probably be responsible for the successful completion of that particular group's goals, so to speak.
Yeah. Those human relation skills, what kind of skills are they? What are you talking about?
The ability to understand, people, their problems, what makes them tick, how to get them involved with the company. Just people skills, quite frankly. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to remind you of one of your all-time favorites. Well, you got a lot of favorites. I got a list. One of them on there is the old saying about 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yes.
That has a bearing on human relations.
Huge bearing. You got it's 4 to 1. All right. You really have to listen to people. Listen actively. You're absolutely. I mean, you see somebody who's not performing well, you got to bring them in the office, close the door, and say, "What's going on?" Maybe they don't have the training they need in their particular technical function, and it's not their fault. They may be trying very hard, but it may be an attitudinal problem. It may be a problem they've got outside of the business. But your job as a supervisor is to dig into those things.
But you started with those.
You start with 1 mouth, 2 eyes, 2 ears. It's 4 to 1. Just ask some questions and listen into it very carefully.
And further, I'm giving you some further supervisory skills. There's conceptual skills.
Yep.
Is that a little overreaching, or what do you think?
No, not at all, because you have to understand how this particular group fits into the overall strategy or goals of the company. You have to understand what you do. It's a bigger company we could be talking about, where you've got a division, an IT division. How does that fit into the overall goal of what the company is trying to accomplish? The only way you're going to be aligned with the goals of the company is to understand what those goals are and understand the concepts that are being handed down to you by upper management.
That's right. So that as a supervisor, your job is not just to write a computer program. You're supposed to fit into the mission and the objectives and the strategy.
Mission, vision, values of the company, the culture of the company. Absolutely.
Okay. Another supervisory skill that's important would be decision making.
Right.
How about that?
That's critically important. And
Make a decision.
That's something that definitely needs to be developed, because you're going to be given data. Now all of a sudden you're going to be given data about your division, about your people, whatever it is. And data is what you use to get the information out of it that you need to make good decisions that continue to move your division, your company forward. And so you have to have good analytical skills, decision-making skills.
If you're a supervisor and someone says, "What are we going to do next?" You're not the one going to say, "I don't know."
No, you better
I
not
don't
say
care.
you don't know. Yeah, right,
I don't
yeah.
care.
I don't know. Go do something.
Yeah.
Go stand by the water cooler.
Right. Now, we at the beginning of the show we talked about a background or history of supervision, but there's also modern technique now, because times change.
Times are changing constantly and rapidly. In today's world, things are changing at light speed.
And some more modern or up-to-date skills that a supervisor needs would start with what's called task-related activities.
Yep.
What's that? What are we talking about there?
Got to get the job done. What is it we have to do to get the job done? And what are the goals? What measurements are we being measured by to see that these are the successes? If you accomplish this, you're successful. So there are tasks. So you have to understand the two things, and we'll get to the second one in a second. It's about tasks and people, or task/results and people. You can't be just people-oriented and not worry about the task. And you can't be just task-oriented and not care about the people. You have to have two.
Well, when the owner says we need such and such done, and you're the supervisor, and the next thing you say, well, what am I supposed to do? And the boss goes like this.
I just told you what.
I told you what needs to be done.
Now you go figure out how to do it. Right.
That's task related.
You bet. Task related.
Okay. And back to but also at the same time, people related activities.
Yeah. You got to manage them. You got to motivate them. You got to lead them. You got to listen to them. You got to look at them. There are people skills that are involved. So again, which one is more important, the task or the people? The answer is both, quite frankly. You need to have both, task related. You can't be just a good old boy, people-oriented person that doesn't care about getting the job done. The job has to be done, but you got to care about the people, because it's the people that are doing the job. So there's a block that I use sometimes in organizational behavior when I teach it, and in the upper right-hand corner is 9/9 instead of 0/0.
Yeah.
That you're not only just people-oriented, or you're not just task-oriented, you are both. Both are equally important, because it's the people working for you that are going to get the job done.
And talk about modern supervision. There's something called change-related activities.
Yep.
What's that?
Like we just said, things are changing in the world rapidly, and you got to keep up. You got to keep. You got to be able to. Here's where leadership comes. Here's where communication and leadership come in. You've just been given a change in a goal or the way the company are going to be doing things. The hardest one sometimes is downsizing, because you're going to let some people go because sales are off, and you have a group of people here that are still with you that are worried about this, and even if it's your own company, you have to let them understand what's going on, why the change is necessary, and if there's any way, without being full of baloney, say this will be better for individuals and the company, this change is for everybody's good. And this is where leadership and communication come in.
Well, recognizing, being cognizant of change that might be taking place.
It's coming at you constantly. Things are changing so fast in today's world. You get the blinders off. Yeah.
And we're still talking about updating supervisory skills for the modern day and age today. And that was, we mentioned that back earlier in our objectives, is that we were going to ask you to talk about diversity. What we now call diversity.
Right.
And I don't, in my day and age, I don't remember diversity being talked about. But
Yeah, well, today it is talked about, and I've been talking about it for over 20 years, so I just let something out of the bag, I guess. And I've been saying that the United States, if it ever gets its act together, and I think we're getting our act together finally, that the diversity that we have in this country, different nationalities, I mean, even going back 100 or 200 years, European, Asian, German, French, and now African Americans and Hispanics and women. Women are representing a huge piece. All of these different points of views give us, I think, if we're able to manage that, a great competitive advantage as far as being able to sit and think things through and look at things from a lot of different angles, and then as a team come up with a better direction to move the company forward. Because like I said, things are changing fast. So you get a lot of diverse opinions in there, but once you have a consensus on when you want to take this thing, everybody pulls the wagon in the same direction. I think we have a great competitive advantage over a jingoistic society that only is, one nationality. That's just a personal opinion.
Well, you mentioned women in the workforce. The statistic that you've got for me here is that 46% of workers age 55 plus is 23%. 46%.
I'm not sure what that means.
Here's what I know. Missing here.
Here's what I know. That women are a big part of the workforce today, and have been since World War II. World War II and Rosie the Riveter with everybody, all the guys out over fighting. That changed the world, and I think it changed it in a very positive way. But for instance, my own practice, and I've actually seen well over 3,000 entrepreneurs now in my years of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And 60% of them are women that are either starting or want to start their own business. I work with a team here in southeastern Massachusetts of business advisors, and the business advisors I work with, Jill, Melinda, Nancy, and me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 75%, and these are the best people I ever worked with in my life by far.
So dealing with diversity,
an important issue, and it's a competitive advantage in my opinion.
Yeah. And what about this what's called subtle discrimination? Supervisors and other managers can use several tactics to improve attitudes.
Sure.
What are you talking about?
Well, you can
there?
mix and match things. You can have people working together and shifting them around, and just get rid of, just always question any negative stereotype. Their job as a supervisor or management at any level, there is no place for stereotypic, these people are like this. That's just such a bunch of crap. It's incredible. Let's, like I say, get all of these folks working together, liking each other, maybe not, but definitely respecting each other and going forward to make this thing an even better moving.
Well, that's a tall order to get.
It is. It is.
For supervisors to adapt.
And that's where your mouth gets smaller, your eyes and your ears get bigger.
Let's jump into some of the skill types that the supervisors need.
Planning, organizing, staffing, leading, controlling.
Well, we'll start with planning.
That's where it starts.
Setting goals, determining how to meet them, and so forth. So talk to us about the planning aspect.
Well, you're going to have certain goals handed to you from above, unless you are the entrepreneur, and then you're doing the planning there too.
Right.
And if it's you and 6 of your employees, and that's your whole company, you're planning. You're planning for next month. You're planning for next year. You're planning 2 or 3 years into the program of how you're going to build your business. So setting goals and figuring out the purpose of planning by a supervisor is determine how the department is going to contribute to the overall plan of the company.
Yeah.
So if you've got one division that you're running, then you've got to understand how yours fits with the overall plans that have been handed down to you from the C-suite on down.
One thing I was going to mention to you, a person in a supervisory position, could be and should be asking for planning. You could be in an organization where the the owner, the entrepreneur who started the company, is not a planning type person.
It's not good.
And say, we just take it, day to day.
Yeah, we'll just wander here.
But
no
if you're
sales.
a supervisor, that puts you in a difficult position.
It really does. You got to get a sail up or a motor on the boat and figure out where you want to go, and then it's a lot easier to go. It's the old story of the Alice walking down the road, comes to the fork in the road, and the Cheshire Cat appears in the tree. Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And she says, where do these two roads go? And the Cheshire Cat says, where do you plan on going? And she says, I don't care. And he said, well, it doesn't matter which road you take then.
Either road will take
Don't
you
worry
there.
about it. They'll take you there wherever it is.
But you're a supervisor. If you're in an organization and there is no plan, and there's no talking about planning, that puts you in a tough position.
That's in a very difficult position, I think, and you have to sit down and say, what's the plan? Where are we going with this company? That's what I want to know.
Right.
And yeah.
And that would planning would include like how much money.
Yeah, what's my
spend,
budget?
output,
You got $1 million budget here, so this is what you've got to run your division on or your particular company on. If the budget's $1 million, then that's what you got to run the company on. Then you got to figure out what are you going to get? What's the output that you are expected to get for that much money being invested in your division? How many employees do I have? Do I need more employees? This is all part of the planning function.
Right. And what level of output to achieve?
Exactly.
And how many people?
Right.
That's tough to get permission to hire more people.
Well, it depends on the budget. If you got a budget and you got 8 people and you don't have any money to hire more people, and they're telling you that you've got to achieve something that's not achievable, you've got to be able to go to management and say, I need 2 more people and more equipment, and that's going to cost another $200,000. I need this $200,000 to get you the output you need, and that's where the give and take goes between you and the people above you as a supervisory manager.
Right. And well, we're going to do, Coach, we're going to do 2 episodes on this because it's a big topic.
It is.
And this is episode 1. All of our Fox Robbins episodes are uploaded to YouTube for viewer convenience. So this will be part 1 of a supervision topic, and we'll have part 2. We'll be doing that in a minute.
Right.
And so please feel free to go to YouTube. In the search box on the front page of YouTube, just type in a single word, Fox Robbins, FOXROBBINS, that's it, and click. And there's a whole library of Fox Robbins shows. You just choose and pick topics that are of current interest.
Right.
And if that's involves supervision, pick that one.
Right.
And we'll go on to part 2, and we will see you next time.